AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she asked me to fund half of it? This is going to be long, so bear with me. I, 31M, have a younger sister, Emily, 28F. Growing up, we were close but also had a fair share of fights, as most siblings do. Our parents split when we were teens, and we both ended up living with our mom, who has always been very frugal and extremely involved in both of our lives. Emily got engaged about 6 months ago. She and her fiancé, Mark, are both in solid careers. Emily works in marketing, and Mark is an engineer. From the beginning, she started dropping hints about wanting a dream wedding that would rival anything in a bridal magazine. I wasn't involved much at first because I assumed she had it handled, but then she started asking questions about my financial situation. I told her I was doing fine, but I wasn't rich. I live paycheck to paycheck like a lot of people, and I have some savings, but nothing enormous. Then came the bombshell. Emily told me she expected me to cover half the wedding costs because she really wanted me to be involved in a meaningful way. The number she quoted was around $25,000. I froze. I don't make $25,000 in a month. I make $65,000 a year, and after rent, student loans, and living expenses, I couldn't even scrape together $10,000 without emptying my savings and going into debt. I tried to explain this to her gently, but she dismissed it. She said I was being unreasonable and selfish for not wanting to contribute. She brought up how I never did anything big for her weddings, which is nonsense because she's had one big birthday party in college and a graduation party where I chipped in $500. She told me that since I make more than Mark's family, I should pay more. I offered to help in other ways, like assisting with planning, managing vendors, or even helping to organize the guest list, but she kept insisting it had to be money. I said I could maybe contribute a few thousand, but it was absolutely impossible to cover half. That's when things got heated. She started sending me messages calling me selfish, cheap, and heartless. She even said she might reconsider inviting me to the wedding if I didn't come through financially. At that point, I had to step back and tell her I couldn't do it. I explained that I wanted to be at her wedding and I loved her, but I literally could not afford $25,000 without ruining myself financially. Our parents got involved at this point. My mom told me I owe it to your sister because she's your family, while my dad said I should help if I can. I tried to tell them I was willing to help in any reasonable way, but they both kept implying that my refusal made me the villain. Emily escalated things further by posting passive-aggressive social media stories about family who won't support my big day and tagging me in them. I decided to take a step back and told her I could contribute $3,000, and that's it. I also offered to pay for specific things directly, like flowers or the photographer, but she said she didn't want piecemeal contributions and that the number had to come as a lump sum. That's when I finally said no. I explained that contributing $25,000 was beyond my means and that if she couldn't accept smaller help or other forms of support, then I'd attend as her brother without funding the wedding. She hasn't spoken to me since. My mom is furious with me and keeps texting me that I need to make sacrifices for family. Mark's parents are apparently upset as well, though I haven't spoken to them. Some mutual friends have messaged me saying I should just pay up to avoid drama, but I honestly don't feel like that's fair. I've always helped my sister when I could, but this feels unreasonable. Here's where I feel a little guilty. I know $3,000 is a lot for some people, but it's all I can do. Emily has always been spoiled in subtle ways, and I feel like maybe I should just swallow my pride and give in for the sake of peace. But at the same time, I know going $22,000 beyond my means would be financially disastrous, and it feels like she's prioritizing the dream wedding over our relationship. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to pay half of my sister's wedding when she asked for $25,000. Additional context, I've tried to compromise, offered smaller contributions, offered to handle specific expenses, and even offered to help plan the wedding. She refuses to accept anything but full financial support. I'm also aware this might hurt our relationship long-term, but I can't see a way to do this without seriously endangering my finances. I just want to attend her wedding, celebrate her happiness, and not go broke in the process, but it feels like she's putting me in an impossible position. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my sister stay at my house after she got out of rehab. Even though our family is furious with me, I, 29F, have always been close to my younger sister, Ella, 26F, but over the past few years, things have gotten increasingly complicated. Ella has struggled with addiction for a long time, alcohol at first, and later it escalated to prescription drugs. I was the one who initially covered for her when she would miss work or get into trouble, and I even loaned her money when she claimed she needed it for rent or bills. I never judged her openly, but I did start setting boundaries after some really bad incidents, like when she crashed her car while intoxicated and I had to bail her out of legal trouble. Fast forward to last year, Ella finally checked into rehab after a particularly bad incident that scared both of us. I was happy she was finally getting help and genuinely supported her. I didn't expect her to fix everything overnight, but I thought it was a positive step. The rehab was 6 months long, and during that time, I visited her when I could, sent letters, and occasionally sent money for small comforts she wanted. I kept up with her progress through weekly calls with her counselor, and things seemed to be going well. Recently, Ella completed rehab and was released. My family immediately started asking if she could move in with me while she got back on her feet. At first, I hesitated but didn't say anything concrete. The thought of having her live with me again made me incredibly anxious. A big part of me wanted to help her because she's my sister, and I know she's genuinely trying this time. But another part of me remembered all the stress she caused when she lived with me in the past, messing up bills, sneaking alcohol into the house, and lying about where she was going or what she was doing. So I made a decision. I told my parents and Ella that while I wanted to support her in other ways, I could not let her live with me. I explained that my home is a personal safe space where I work from home, and I need to maintain boundaries for my own mental health. I offered to help her find an apartment, pay a deposit, and even assist with job applications, but I drew a firm line at living under the same roof. I thought this was a fair compromise. This is where things exploded. My parents were furious, saying I was being selfish and unsupportive. Ella was devastated and accused me of not believing in her recovery, claiming that family support is essential to staying sober. My parents have been insisting that I owe her this after all the help I gave her before rehab. My argument is that having her live with me again could set both of us up for failure, and it's not a question of supporting her in recovery. It's a question of what is sustainable and healthy for me. Things came to a head at a family dinner. My mom started crying, saying I was turning my back on my sister and that Ella might relapse without me. My dad got angry and suggested that if I really cared about family, I'd just make sacrifices. Ella's friends from rehab even reached out to me privately, telling me I should do the right thing and provide a stable home for her. I didn't respond to them because, frankly, I didn't want outsiders influencing my decision. I have been feeling guilty because part of me does want to help more directly. But the other part of me remembers how difficult it was when she lived with me before and how much resentment I built up trying to manage her addiction while balancing my own life. I've offered support in concrete ways. Help with apartment hunting, moving costs, connecting her with work, and even scheduling daily check-ins if she wants. But my parents claim it's not enough and that I should open my doors unconditionally. Since my refusal, my family has been cold toward me. I get passive-aggressive comments from my mom, and Ella barely talks to me outside of occasional texts. My friends are split. Some say I'm being selfish and that family comes first, while others agree that boundaries are important, especially with someone in early recovery. I genuinely want Ella to succeed, but I also want to protect my own mental health. I'm scared that letting her live with me would lead to tension, relapses, or even endanger my job, which I cannot afford. I'm starting to wonder if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm overthinking it. After all, if I refuse, am I abandoning her at a critical time in her life? Or is insisting she find her own place a responsible way to support her recovery? I feel like no matter what I do, I'm going to hurt someone, and that's eating me alive. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister stay at my house after rehab, even though my family thinks I should. Character count, 6,621 if you want. I can write a second, slightly different version with even more family drama and tension, which tends to do even better for Reddit-style engagement. It could push closer to 7,000 characters with more subtle psychological conflict. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding because of how she treated me growing up. I, 32F, come from a family where finances have always been tight. My parents did the best they could, but my sister, 28F, has always gotten preferential treatment from them. It's not just my perception. My parents openly admit she's the golden child. I've learned to navigate my own life with that in mind, but it's always left a sour taste in my mouth, especially because I worked really hard to get where I am now. Growing up, my sister always seemed to get the best of everything. She had her own room, painted whatever color she wanted, the newest gadgets, clothes, and my parents would bend over backward to make sure she never had to feel like she was missing out. Meanwhile, I had to share a room until I was 16, and anything I wanted had to be earned or begged for. It wasn't just material things either. My sister could break rules without consequence, while I was punished for the smallest infractions. She would regularly insult me, call me lazy or stupid, and my parents would laugh it off, or worse, agree with her. Despite all of this, I tried to keep a relationship with her as an adult. I figured maybe she'd grown out of it. Maybe we could be close now. For the most part, I was wrong. She's still manipulative, often passive-aggressive, and whenever we interact, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. I've realized over the years that my emotional well-being is more important than trying to force a sibling bond that clearly isn't healthy for me. So here's where the wedding drama comes in. My sister got engaged about a year ago, and she immediately started making a huge deal out of the wedding. She's marrying someone from a wealthy family, and the wedding is set to be extravagant. She started expecting everyone to contribute financially. My parents, who are retired and on fixed incomes, were asked to pay for a significant portion. I was asked to contribute too. Here's the thing. My sister and I have not had a good relationship. I didn't want to be part of her wedding in any major way, financially or emotionally, because I knew it would just be another opportunity for her to belittle me or manipulate me. She specifically asked me for $5,000, which is a huge amount for me, even though I'm comfortable financially now. I said no. I told her I could help in other ways if she needed, like helping with invitations, decorations, or setup, but I could not and would not contribute that kind of money. She exploded. She called me selfish, immature, and ungrateful. She said that I'm the only one who hasn't contributed, and that my refusal is ruining everything. My parents were shocked I refused, and while they didn't outright take her side, they expressed disappointment and guilt-tripped me a bit. They said things like, "You don't want to be part of her big day? You're being ridiculous." I tried explaining that I have memories of how I was treated growing up, and how I don't feel a sense of obligation to pay thousands for a wedding when I was routinely dismissed and insulted by the person getting married. I also tried pointing out that our relationship is not strong and that spending money won't magically fix it. She just got angrier and started bringing up every small favor I ever asked from her, painting me as the villain who never does anything for anyone. A few of my cousins and friends are on my side, saying I have every right to refuse, but other family members think I'm overreacting. They say it's just a wedding, and I should put aside old grudges for one day. My sister is now saying she may not even invite me to the wedding at all because of my refusal, which I don't mind. I honestly don't want to be in a situation where I feel uncomfortable, belittled, or manipulated in what is supposed to be a joyful event. I'm starting to feel guilty, though. Maybe I'm overreacting. I can't deny that $5,000 is a lot of money, and I do care about family, even if my relationship with my sister has been strained. But at the same time, I remember every instance of being dismissed, insulted, or excluded, and I can't bring myself to reward that behavior financially. I'm torn between feeling like a reasonable adult who's setting boundaries and feeling like a heartless sister who's missing out on one of the most important days of a sibling's life. I want to be there in spirit and even in small practical ways, but my refusal to give her money has caused a huge rift. So, AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding because of how she treated me growing up. AITA for refusing to help my sister after she chose to get a family heirloom tattooed over my late mom's portrait. I, 28F, grew up extremely close with my mom. She passed away 3 years ago, and it was honestly the hardest thing I've ever gone through. My sister, Lily, 26F, and I had a complicated relationship growing up. Typical sibling stuff, sometimes loving, sometimes competitive, but after Mom's death, we both kind of clung to the few ways we could remember her. For me, it's been keeping her room the same, having her photos around the house, and just remembering the little things she loved. Lily, on the other hand, always had this thing about tattoos. She's got several, and a lot of them are personal statements rather than memorials or symbols that are meaningful to anyone else. About a month ago, Lily told me she wanted to get a tattoo of Mom's face on her forearm. She said she wanted it to be the ultimate tribute and that it would honor Mom forever. I was shocked. Mom was never the kind of person to want her face tattooed anywhere, and it honestly felt disrespectful to me. I told her that I didn't feel comfortable with it, especially because she was asking for my help in finding a tattoo artist and even for some of Mom's old photos to use as reference. I said I would not provide the pictures or help in any way. I explained that while I understood she wanted to honor Mom, using her exact face in a tattoo felt invasive and, frankly, unsettling for me. Lily got very upset. She said I was being selfish and controlling, that I was making grief about me again, and that I didn't care how she chose to remember Mom. I told her I absolutely care about how she remembers Mom, but that doesn't mean I have to participate in something I find disrespectful. I even offered to help her come up with other ways to memorialize Mom, like a framed portrait, a locket with a picture, or a tattoo of something symbolic that reminded her of Mom, but she refused. A week later, she went behind my back and got the tattoo anyway. I didn't see it in person until she showed it to me over a video call. It's bad. I don't mean the art necessarily. I mean the whole thing is deeply unsettling. The likeness is off, the expression is strange, and it honestly made me feel physically uncomfortable. On top of that, it's right on her forearm, so anyone she meets will see it. She expected me to compliment it and act like everything was fine, but I couldn't. I told her that I was not okay with it, and that I could not bring myself to comment positively on something that feels wrong to me. That's when the full-blown argument started. She accused me of ruining her way of grieving and said that I had no right to dictate how she honors Mom. She called me cold, selfish, and even cruel. I told her I was sorry she felt that way, but I couldn't lie to her about my feelings. I also said that honoring Mom shouldn't hurt the people she left behind, and I felt like this tattoo did exactly that for me. The rest of our relationship since then has been tense. She refuses to speak to me unless I accept her choices, and even brought up that I should financially contribute to fixing or covering up the tattoo because I made her feel unsafe about honoring Mom. I told her absolutely not. This was her choice, and I would not pay for a tattoo she wanted to get regardless of my feelings. I've tried to reach out, suggest counseling, or even just give each other space, but she's adamant that I am the villain here. Other family members are split. My dad says I'm overreacting and that the tattoo doesn't change anything about the love we shared for Mom. My best friend says I'm justified in my feelings and that refusing to participate in something I find wrong is not the same as being cruel. Mom's best friend, who I'm very close to, said the tattoo made her uncomfortable too and that it feels too literal, but she's staying neutral because she doesn't want to upset Lily. I honestly don't know if I'm overreacting. I want to respect my sister's way of grieving, but I also feel like she completely disregarded my feelings and pushed me into a corner where I couldn't support her without betraying my own comfort. The way she talks to me now makes me feel like I'm some sort of villain for not helping her. So AITA for refusing to participate in my sister's tattoo of Mom's face, even after she went ahead without my consent. Character count, 6,435. AITA for refusing to let my younger sister's boyfriend live with us, even though she says I'm being unfair. I, 32M, live alone in a 3-bedroom apartment. I've been living here for about 5 years since I moved out after college, and I've worked hard to make it my own. It's a comfortable space, and I enjoy my privacy and independence. My younger sister, Lily, 27F, has been struggling a bit financially after quitting a job she hated. She's always been close to me, and we talk often. Recently, she started dating a guy named Aaron, 28M. A couple of weeks ago, Lily told me she and Aaron were having financial trouble and asked if Aaron could move in with me for a few months until he got back on his feet. She framed it as just until he finds work, but she also insisted it would be really temporary. I was shocked. I've never met Aaron more than a handful of times. He's not a family member, and we barely know him. My apartment isn't huge, and sharing it with a stranger felt like a huge invasion of my space. I told Lily that I wasn't comfortable with the idea. I explained that my home is my sanctuary, and I wasn't willing to take in someone I barely know. I offered instead to help them look for cheaper rentals or assist with applications, and I even offered a small loan for rent if necessary. Lily didn't take this well. She said I was being selfish and cold, and that family is supposed to help each other in tough times. She accused me of favoring my own comfort over her well-being. A few days later, she texted me a long message explaining that Aaron had no other place to go and that I was basically condemning him to the streets. She reminded me of all the times I helped her in the past, like co-signing for her car and helping with tuition. She said it wasn't fair for me to draw a line at Aaron, and implied that if I refused, I didn't really care about her happiness. I felt guilty, but still, I didn't feel like I could compromise my boundaries. I tried to compromise by suggesting that Aaron could stay for a short weekend visit to get a feel for my place and my routine, but even this she rejected. She said it wasn't the same as living there, and that I was technically letting him be homeless if I didn't let him stay. This escalated into multiple long calls where she kept saying I was being unreasonable. I started feeling anxious about even answering her calls because she became very emotional and accusatory. Then, last weekend, she showed up at my apartment unannounced. She had Aaron with her. They wanted to discuss it in person, and apparently thought seeing my apartment would change my mind. I tried to be polite but firm. I said again that he couldn't live here and that I was sorry if that upset them. But my decision was final. Aaron looked uncomfortable and kept apologizing, but Lily became angry, saying I was literally turning my back on family. They left after a while, but now Lily has stopped talking to me entirely. She's been posting vague things on social media about siblings who can't be bothered and people who put themselves first at the expense of loved ones. A few mutual friends reached out to ask if I'm being unreasonable, and I honestly don't know. On one hand, I feel like I'm protecting my home and my mental well-being. On the other hand, I do feel guilty because Aaron is in a tough spot and my sister clearly expected me to help. I even considered letting him stay in a separate room if I installed a temporary lock or some kind of physical barrier to separate our spaces. But honestly, the thought of having a stranger in my apartment long-term makes me extremely anxious. I've never had anyone stay over for more than a night or two besides guests I knew well. My sister insists I'm being dramatic and that I should just trust Aaron and treat him like family. Part of me wonders if I'm overreacting. Should I prioritize family needs over my own comfort? I keep thinking that letting him stay, even temporarily, could be a disaster. What if they don't leave when they're supposed to? What if he's messy or disrespectful or brings conflicts into my apartment? I've had roommates in the past, and it's stressful enough even when you choose them carefully. I feel like I shouldn't have to risk my peace and safety just because my sister asked. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move in with me, even though she says I'm being unfair and selfish. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of his fiance's behavior. I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger brother, Jake, 26M. We were close when we were kids, but as we got older, we started drifting apart. Not dramatically, just the usual sibling friction, different lifestyles, interests, and approaches to life. Our parents were always very, let siblings be siblings, and didn't intervene much, so we never really worked through our issues. I don't hold that against anyone. It's just background. Jake started dating his now fiancée, Amanda, about 3 years ago. From the beginning, I had my reservations. Amanda is a very ambitious, type A personality, which on its own isn't a problem, but she's also very controlling, manipulative, and doesn't seem to think much about how her behavior affects others. I try to get to know her and be civil, but the more interactions I had with her, the more uncomfortable I felt. There are multiple incidents that stand out, but I'll give the most important ones. First, she has this habit of turning every conversation into a competition. For example, when I mentioned I was promoted at work, she immediately compared her own career accomplishments and basically downplayed mine. At a dinner with my parents, she monopolized the conversation, criticized the food my mom made, and kept interrupting me whenever I tried to talk about my job or life. I felt humiliated but tried to let it go, thinking maybe she just didn't realize how she was coming across. But it became a pattern. Then there's how she interacts with Jake. She constantly tries to isolate him from our family. When Jake came home for Thanksgiving last year, she insisted on driving separately so she could avoid awkward small talk and basically pressured him into leaving early and not spending time with the rest of the family. She also constantly makes subtle jabs at me, my lifestyle, and my friends, all while presenting herself as this picture-perfect, thoughtful person. My parents have noticed, too, but they're hesitant to confront her because they're worried about upsetting Jake. Fast forward to this year. Jake got engaged, and Amanda started planning the wedding. At first, I thought I'd be able to manage it, but things escalated quickly. Amanda has very strict rules about the wedding guest list and what people are allowed to wear, say, or do. For example, she sent out a very formal, multi-page etiquette guide for guests, including instructions on how to respond to her invitations, where to stand in line for photos, and even how to behave during the vows. She also told my parents and me that she didn't want negative people at the wedding, specifically referencing my mom's sister, who has mild social anxiety and tends to be a bit critical when she's stressed. I found that odd, but shrugged it off. The tipping point came when she made a list of family duties for me. According to her, I'm responsible for organizing a pre-wedding brunch, taking part in a complicated choreographed dance during the reception, and helping with wedding favors, all while following her detailed schedule and instructions. I tried to gently explain that I had a full-time job and couldn't commit to all of it, but she basically guilt-tripped me and said that if I didn't do everything exactly her way, I'd be disappointing Jake and the family. I felt like I was being coerced into putting on a performance for a stranger. I decided to have a private conversation with Jake about my concerns. I explained that I don't feel comfortable with Amanda's behavior, that I feel pressured and disrespected, and that I don't want to be part of an environment where I feel like I have to constantly walk on eggshells. Jake's reaction was complicated. He said he understands my perspective, but also said that Amanda is very important to him, and he wants me there because he thinks it will keep the peace. I reminded him that my presence would not make things peaceful if I'm constantly stressed out and angry. He didn't respond much after that. A few weeks later, Amanda sent a formal wedding invitation to me and my parents. I decided I couldn't attend. I sent her a polite but firm message explaining that I would not be able to make it, emphasizing that this was about me managing my mental health and setting boundaries, not about her personally. I also told Jake separately that I love him, but I can't attend the wedding under the circumstances. The fallout was immediate. Amanda publicly posted on social media about how she's disappointed that family can't support love and happiness, tagging both me and Jake. My parents were torn because they understand why I'm refusing, but also don't want to upset Jake on his big day. Jake hasn't really spoken to me since I declined, except for a short text where he said, "I wish you were coming, but I guess you made your choice." I feel like I'm protecting myself, but part of me also feels guilty because I know this will hurt him and create a rift in the family. Several friends and coworkers have told me I did the right thing by setting boundaries, but some family members have accused me of being selfish and not trying hard enough to make it work. I'm stuck between wanting to preserve my own mental well-being and wanting to maintain a relationship with my brother. I also worry that refusing to attend will be remembered for years, as that time she didn't come to the wedding. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of his fiance's behavior. Or, am I justified in protecting my own mental health? AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend live in my house after a breakup? This is going to be long, so I appreciate anyone who reads the whole thing. I, 28F, live in a two-bedroom apartment in a mid-sized city. I rent on my own, and I've worked hard over the years to make it a comfortable place for myself. I'm usually really laid back with friends and family when it comes to hanging out or crashing at my place, but I also have boundaries, which I'll get into. My sister, Lila, 31F, has been dating this guy, Jason, 32M, for about 4 years. For the most part, their relationship has been fine, but it's had its share of drama. Mostly because Jason has a really controlling streak and doesn't get along with my family at all. For years, I tolerated him because I love my sister and I wanted her to be happy. But over time, the tension has grown. About 6 months ago, Lila and Jason broke up. Apparently, it was mutual, but from what I could tell, it was mostly because Jason refused to make any kind of compromise about moving closer to her job and her family. Lila was heartbroken, but she tried to move on. Then, 3 months after the breakup, I got a call from my mom saying that Jason had called her in a panic because he was homeless after his lease fell through. My mom, ever the peacekeeper, asked if I could let him stay with me temporarily. I said no. I told her that I wasn't comfortable having someone who had been abusive to my sister live in my apartment. I didn't go into the full details at first because I thought my mom would understand, but she insisted that I owe him this one favor. I flat out told her I didn't. I don't owe him anything, and I don't want someone who has made my sister miserable living in my space. A week later, Lila called me herself, and she was crying. She begged me to reconsider, saying that he didn't have anywhere else to go, and that she felt guilty. She even offered to pay me rent if it would help. I told her no again. I explained that even if she was okay with it, I was not, and it wasn't something I was willing to negotiate. She got angry and accused me of picking sides and not caring about family. Things escalated when Jason started texting me directly. At first, he tried to charm me, saying things like, "Come on, just 1 week, I'll be out before you know it," but I ignored it. Then, he got more aggressive, sending messages like, "You're being ridiculous," and "I can't believe you'd let your sister beg you for me," and still say no. I blocked him after a couple of days. After that, Lila started bringing it up whenever we talked. She accused me of being selfish, of being cruel to her when all I'm asking for is a little help, and of being unfair. Our conversations turned into arguments. One argument in particular still sticks with me. She said, "You're supposed to be my sister. Aren't you going to help me when I need it? He's been there for me for years. How can you just turn your back like this?" I tried to tell her that being there for her didn't include letting someone who hurt her live in my home, but she wouldn't listen. Here's the thing. I work long hours and my apartment isn't big. I have a roommate situation that barely works as it is. I couldn't take on the responsibility of hosting someone I had zero relationship with, especially someone who has made my family life complicated in the past. I was also afraid of potential conflict because of his controlling tendencies. I did offer other solutions, like helping him find a cheap short-term sublet or giving him some money for a few nights in a hostel, but Lila insisted that none of those options were good enough. Fast forward a couple of weeks, Lila has started posting passive-aggressive things on social media about family turning their backs in times of need, and I know it's about me. Our mutual friends have started asking me about it, and I've explained my side. Some understand, some say I was too harsh. My mom has stopped bringing it up, but seems quietly disappointed. The breaking point came when Lila showed up at my door unannounced with Jason, expecting me to just say yes this one time. I was shocked. I told her no, again, and that I wouldn't tolerate him being there. She started crying and yelling, accusing me of ruining her life, and eventually left, but not before leaving Jason's stuff on my doorstep, saying he'd come back to pick it up later. I called the police to report harassment because I was genuinely scared he might try to break in. He didn't, but the situation left me shaken. Since then, Lila has barely spoken to me. She calls me cold and heartless, and some mutual friends have implied I should have helped family in need. I understand that perspective, but from where I stand, I feel like I drew a line for my own safety and sanity, and now I'm being punished for it. I honestly feel conflicted. Part of me worries that I came off as cruel, but the larger part of me feels like it was the right call. I've been accused of not caring about family and being selfish, but I truly think it's about boundaries and protecting my space. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's ex-boyfriend live in my apartment after their breakup. AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her therapy chickens to my wedding. So, a little background. I, 32F, have been planning my wedding with my fiancé, Alex, 34M, for over a year. We want a relatively small, traditional ceremony with around 80 guests at a venue that's sort of a rustic chic barn. Nothing super extravagant, but beautiful and cozy. I've been very particular about details because, honestly, I wanted this day to feel like ours without chaos. Now, my sister Lily, 28F, has always been, well, a little eccentric. She's genuinely smart and kind, but she has some unusual coping mechanisms for her anxiety and PTSD. She adopted a few therapy animals over the years, one cat, a dog, and more recently, a pair of chickens. Yes, chickens. She claims they help her manage panic attacks and keep her grounded. Fine, I get that, I really do. Mental health is important. But this is where things got tricky. About 6 months ago, she announced that she planned to bring her chickens to my wedding. She referred to them as her emotional support companions and said it was essential for her to have them with her. She even tried to convince me that having them there would make my wedding unique and memorable. I honestly tried to be accommodating and suggested maybe a photo shoot with the chickens outside the venue, but she insisted they needed to be with her the whole day, including during the ceremony and reception. I started feeling uneasy because, first of all, this is a wedding with food and hundreds of people in a confined barn. Chickens, as adorable as they might be, are not exactly hygienic for that kind of environment. Second, some of our guests are severely allergic to feathers and dander. Third, I just didn't want any livestock roaming around during our special day. I tried explaining all of this to her gently, but she became very defensive and said I was being unsympathetic and controlling. A month before the wedding, she threatened that if I didn't allow her chickens, she wouldn't attend at all. I was furious because this felt manipulative. I reminded her that she could come without the chickens and that her presence was more important than any animals. She replied that it wasn't the same and accused me of invalidating her needs. At this point, I told her that if she chose not to attend, that was her decision, but I would not compromise the safety and comfort of other guests for her chickens. Fast forward to the wedding day. She still refused to come without them. My parents tried to mediate, suggesting we could set up a separate chicken area outside, but the venue manager said it wasn't possible due to health regulations and insurance liability. Lily called me the night before, crying and saying I was ruining her life and my own wedding by being cruel. I didn't respond beyond saying, "I'm sorry you feel that way, but our decision stands." The wedding itself went beautifully, aside from Lily's absence. My aunt took a moment to tell me afterward that she thought I might have been too harsh, and a few distant relatives said I could have compromised more for family. My parents are split. Mom says I did the right thing. Dad says I could have been more flexible. Lily hasn't spoken to me since, and she's been posting on social media about how heartless I am for prioritizing my wedding over her mental health. I'm feeling guilty because I love my sister and I understand that she relies on these chickens. But I also feel like I did what was reasonable. I set boundaries, explained the health and safety concerns, and offered alternatives that she refused. I've had other friends tell me that people need to take responsibility for their own coping mechanisms and that a wedding isn't the place to force others to participate in them. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her therapy chickens to my wedding. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to apologize to my sister after she publicly shamed me at my own birthday party. So I, 28F, am feeling very conflicted and need some perspective because my family is making me doubt myself. My birthday was last weekend, and I threw a small gathering in my apartment with close friends and family. My sister, Sarah, 32F, has always been a little competitive with me, but I usually just roll with it and try to avoid arguments. This time, though, it got really ugly, and I'm not sure if I overreacted. A little background. Sarah and I have a history of passive-aggressive behavior toward each other. She likes to one-up me in everything from careers to relationships to achievements. My friends notice it too, and sometimes we joke about it, but it's become really exhausting. Leading up to my birthday, I was really excited. I invited about 15 people, ordered food, and even bought a small cake. I made it very clear that it was a casual, fun evening. My sister, as usual, insisted on bringing a special contribution and said she had a surprise for me. I thought it would be a nice gesture. The party started off fine. People were chatting, the music was playing, and everyone seemed happy. My sister arrived about an hour after the party started, and she immediately took over the kitchen, insisting that she had made homemade hors d'oeuvres that everyone would love more than the pizza and snacks I had prepared. I brushed it off and told everyone to try both if they wanted. The problem started when it came time to open gifts. I was opening gifts in the living room, and Sarah had bought me a small, thoughtful present. She handed it to me, and I thanked her. Then she said, loudly enough for everyone to hear, I wasn't sure what to get you because, honestly, your taste has gotten so weird. Like, last year's gift was such a disaster. I had to return it myself because it was embarrassing. There was a stunned silence. My best friend immediately looked mortified. I froze, not knowing how to respond. I tried to laugh it off and said something like, wow, okay, noted, but she didn't stop there. She continued, and honestly, I thought about just not coming this year because I didn't want to waste my time on something that you wouldn't even appreciate properly. I mean, last year you acted like you hated my gift anyway, so why bother? At that point, I felt my face burning. I didn't want to make a scene, but I also couldn't let her belittle me in front of my friends and family. I calmly told her that I appreciated the gift and her effort, but I didn't think it was fair for her to speak about past gifts in front of everyone like that. She rolled her eyes and said, oh, come on, it's just a joke. You're too sensitive. Later, she pulled me aside privately and demanded that I apologize to her for being so defensive and ruining the mood of the party. She said I should have laughed it off and accepted her honest critique like a mature adult. I told her no, I wasn't apologizing for reacting to being publicly shamed. She then texted me later that night saying I was immature, ungrateful, and had embarrassed her in front of our family for refusing to apologize. Since then, the tension has been unbearable. My parents are upset that there was a scene at my party, and my friends are confused and asking why my sister was acting that way. I feel like I'm in the right, but everyone keeps telling me to just apologize to keep the peace. I don't want to because I honestly don't think I did anything wrong. I was defending myself from being publicly humiliated. I'm worried that if I don't apologize, I'll be labeled as the bad sister or overly sensitive for the rest of my life. But apologizing would mean validating her behavior, and that feels wrong to me. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to apologize to my sister after she publicly shamed me at my birthday party. AITA for not letting my sister's fiancé plan our family vacation because of a past incident. So, some context. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Emma, 28F, and our family is pretty tight-knit. Every year, we have a big summer vacation where we all rent a house somewhere, usually near the beach or in a mountain town. It's always been my mom, 58F, dad, 60M, Emma, and me. Occasionally, my brother-in-law joins if he's around, but mostly it's just us. Last year, Emma started dating this guy, Jared, 30M. He seemed nice at first, and I try to be welcoming. Now, here's the thing. Last year during our vacation, Emma brought Jared along, and it did not go well. He tried to take over planning everything, from meals to activities, and kept changing things without consulting anyone. For example, one morning, he decided we were going to hike at 7 a.m. instead of the usual 9 a.m. because he said it would be cooler then, even though half of us were night owls and had barely slept. He also rearranged our shared kitchen schedule and bought a bunch of specialty foods that no one liked. By the end of the trip, my parents were frustrated, Emma was annoyed but didn't say anything, and I ended up organizing most of the activities just to keep things from falling apart. It was stressful and honestly a little humiliating because he kept insisting that his way was the best way. Fast forward to now. This year, we're planning the vacation again, and my parents have been asking me to handle the bookings because I have more free time and am better at organizing. I said yes, but Emma immediately said she wanted Jared to help plan it with me. I explained that after last year, I really prefer to manage it myself because it's just easier and less stressful. Emma insisted that I was being unfair and that I should let him help and be part of the family too. I reminded her of last year's chaos and said I wasn't comfortable repeating it. Things escalated when I told Emma that if Jared tries to take over the planning this year, I will just ignore his suggestions and continue with my plan. She got really upset and accused me of being controlling and not letting him integrate into the family. My parents tried to mediate and suggested a compromise, like maybe letting Jared pick one or two activities, but I said no. I explained that last year, even small compromises turned into major arguments, and I don't want to repeat that. Emma hasn't spoken to me much since, and my mom mentioned that maybe I'm being too rigid. My dad said he thinks I'm justified, but I'm starting to feel like maybe I am overreacting. After all, he is her fiancé, and maybe I should just let him help in some way. On the other hand, I really value the peace of our family vacations, and I don't want to set myself up for another stressful trip where I'm essentially doing all the work while he takes credit. The thing is, Jared hasn't actually done anything wrong this year, but I'm basing my decision entirely on last year's experience. I feel guilty because I don't want to alienate Emma, but I also don't want to deal with the chaos again. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé plan or co-plan the family vacation this year because of what happened last year. I know some people might say I'm holding a grudge, but it honestly caused a lot of tension and stress, and I just want to avoid repeating that. At the same time, I understand wanting him to feel included and valued in the family. I'm torn between wanting a smooth vacation and trying to be accommodating. Any insight would help. AITA for refusing to host my cousin's wedding at my house, even though I offered to help with everything else. So, this is a bit of a long story, and I think it will help if I give some background first. I, 32F, have a pretty small but cozy house. I've lived here for about 5 years, and it's been great for me. My space, my rules, minimal stress. My cousin, let's call her Emily, 30F, has been planning her wedding for over a year. She's been very hands-on with planning, which is admirable, but also incredibly stressful for everyone involved. She's the type who likes to control every detail, which is fine, but it tends to wear people out. About 2 months ago, Emily called me in a panic. Her original venue canceled last minute because of a scheduling conflict. I could hear the stress in her voice. She was on the verge of tears. She asked if she could host the wedding at my house. I was caught completely off guard. My house is nice for day-to-day life, but it is nowhere near a typical wedding venue. There's no lawn, no space for a ton of people, and definitely no professional setup for catering or anything fancy. But I really wanted to help her, so I told her I would do everything I could to help plan the wedding. I offered to help her find an alternative venue, help with decorations, coordinate with vendors, even lend her some of my furniture for setup. Emily thanked me, but kept insisting that having the wedding at my house would be perfect because it would be cozy and personal. I tried to explain that the logistics would be extremely difficult, and frankly, my house couldn't accommodate the number of guests she planned to invite, about 80 people. I also made it clear that my house is my sanctuary, and having a large wedding with strangers, loud music, and all the commotion would be extremely stressful for me. She didn't seem to hear any of that. She started sending me Pinterest boards, quotes from decorators, and even suggested building a temporary tent in my backyard, which isn't really suitable for that kind of structure. She asked me repeatedly if I could just think about it and try to make it work, which I did, honestly, for a solid week. I even got estimates for rentals, catering setups, and crowd control, all of which were way over my budget. Finally, I had to have the conversation. I told her, kindly but firmly, that while I want to support her in every way possible, hosting the wedding at my house is not feasible for me personally, financially, or logistically. I explained that I could still help in every other way. I could drive her to appointments, help with decorations, help with vendor negotiations, and even lend my house for pre-wedding photos or a small bridal party gathering. I really tried to be as accommodating as possible without sacrificing my own well-being. She didn't take it well. She started crying and saying that I didn't love her enough to let her have her dream wedding. She said it was so selfish of me not to let her share such an important moment in our lives in my home. She also started texting other family members about the situation, framing it as me refusing to let her have her special day in her family's home, and painting me as unreasonable. Now, a bunch of relatives have started subtly, or not so subtly, pressuring me. Some are telling me that I should just bite the bullet for family harmony. Others are suggesting that if I don't let her have it here, I'll regret it forever and that I'm being cold or detached. My parents are caught in the middle. They told me they understand my side, but also feel like I should try harder to accommodate Emily. I feel completely torn. I love my cousin, but I also know that letting her have a large wedding at my house would be a disaster for me emotionally and financially. On top of that, since I set boundaries, she's been increasingly distant and passive-aggressive, sending messages like, "It's okay, I guess we'll just do it the hard way," or "I understand you don't care about family traditions as much as I do." It's creating a lot of tension in our extended family, which I was hoping to avoid. I guess my main question is, am I the asshole for saying no to hosting the wedding at my house, even though I'm doing everything else I can to support her? I don't want to ruin her wedding or our relationship, but I also feel like my limits and mental health matter. I have been clear, I have offered alternatives, and yet I feel like the family expects me to just give up my comfort for the sake of appearances. I'm trying to be supportive without sacrificing myself, and I'm starting to wonder if that makes me an asshole in their eyes. I've been agonizing over this because I love Emily, and I want her day to be special, but the idea of turning my home into a wedding venue with all the logistical chaos is genuinely terrifying to me. At this point, I feel like if I give in, I will be resentful and probably won't be able to enjoy the wedding at all. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my cousin's wedding at my house, even though I'm helping with everything else. AITA for confronting my brother over his financial favors and causing a huge family fallout. I, 28F, have always been the responsible one in my family when it comes to finances. I have a stable job, save diligently, and have very little debt. My younger brother, Jake, 25M, on the other hand, has been less careful. He's smart and talented, but he's had a habit of living paycheck to paycheck, often borrowing money from family members without paying it back in full or on time. Our parents, understandably, have bailed him out more times than I can count. A few months ago, Jake reached out to me with a new opportunity. He claimed he was investing in a side business idea that could potentially bring in a lot of money. He said he needed $2,500 to cover some initial costs. Normally, I would have hesitated, but he framed it as a loan and promised a repayment schedule. I figured, okay, I can afford this and it's for family, so I reluctantly agreed. The first sign of trouble came when the date for repayment passed. I didn't panic immediately because I knew life happens, but then he started dodging my messages. Every time I brought it up, he'd say, "I'm working on it," or "just a little longer." Weeks turned into months. Meanwhile, I discovered that the business he claimed to be working on wasn't progressing. In fact, through mutual friends and social media, I learned that he was spending money on luxury items, partying, and trips. I felt sick. I decided to confront him. I tried to be calm and rational. I sent a message saying, "Jake, I trusted you with this money. I know things might be tight, but I need a plan for repayment." He responded angrily, saying I was attacking him and treating him like a child. I didn't respond further at that point, but I started tracking the money and all the promises he'd made. I even drafted a repayment plan, hoping it would make things clear and fair. A few weeks later, at a family dinner, I decided to bring it up in person. I told him that borrowing money without a clear plan and then spending it on non-essentials was not acceptable. I explained that I felt taken advantage of and that I needed him to honor his commitment. At first, he brushed it off and laughed, but then he became defensive and started raising his voice. He accused me of shaming him in front of the family. Things escalated when our parents tried to intervene. They said, "Can't we just let him figure it out? He's our son. We have to support him." I tried to explain that my issue wasn't about helping him once or twice. It was about repeated irresponsibility and lack of accountability. I mentioned previous incidents where he'd borrowed money from our parents, cousins, and even friends, promising repayment but never following through. My words seemed to hit a nerve. He left the dinner fuming, and the atmosphere became tense. The rest of the family mostly stayed quiet, but the air was thick with discomfort. After that night, I received multiple messages from relatives criticizing me. Some said I was being harsh and should give my brother a break. Others accused me of not understanding how hard it is to start a business. A few even suggested I was trying to control him and make him feel guilty for asking for help. I felt blindsided because I honestly thought I was being fair. I wasn't yelling, threatening, or humiliating him. I just wanted clarity and accountability. The worst part is that my parents started pressuring me to forgive and forget, implying that I was being unreasonable by expecting repayment. I tried explaining that this is not just about the $2,500. It's about respect, trust, and boundaries. I offered to forgive a portion of the loan if he signed an agreement with a clear schedule, but he refused outright. He told me I was monetizing family and that I was acting like a bank. Things reached a breaking point when Jake posted a long, dramatic social media story about how I was cold, selfish, and unforgiving for confronting him over money. He even tagged family members. The backlash online was intense, and suddenly I was the villain in a narrative I didn't even recognize. Some distant relatives sent me passive-aggressive messages, saying things like, "Maybe if you loved him, you wouldn't care about money so much." I started questioning myself, wondering if I really had been too harsh. I tried talking to Jake privately again, proposing mediation or even having our parents present to make sure there was a fair plan. He flatly refused. At this point, I decided to cut off any financial dealings with him entirely and focus on protecting myself. I blocked him temporarily online and stopped answering calls. The family fallout has been intense. My parents are upset that I won't budge. Extended family members are divided, and some of them barely speak to me now. Jake hasn't apologized or attempted to repay me, and he has now started borrowing from friends, apparently repeating the same cycle. I don't feel like I acted out of malice. I wanted accountability and clarity. I wanted my brother to learn responsibility without dragging everyone else into the chaos. I also tried multiple times to be fair and reasonable. Still, my family paints me as cruel, and Jake is calling me toxic and unsupportive. So, Reddit, AITA here? Should I have let it slide to keep the peace? Or was I justified in holding my brother accountable for borrowing money and not following through? Character count, 6,421 if you want. I can write another story in a different, highly popular AITA style with more twists and interpersonal drama that pushes closer to the 7,000 character limit. It would feel like one of the viral posts that keeps people debating for days. Do you want me to do that next? AITA for refusing to let my cousin's fiancé bring their toddler to our wedding after she insulted my parenting choices? This all started about a year ago. My fiancé, Alex, and I have been planning our wedding for over a year, and after months of compromise, we finally settled on a small, intimate ceremony with just close family and friends. We both agreed that it would be adults only, mainly because our venue is relatively small, and we wanted our wedding to feel like a grown-up celebration rather than a chaotic kids' party. Alex and I both have siblings and cousins with young children, so the decision was not made lightly. We even included a note in the invites explaining that it would be an adults-only event. My cousin, Rachel, has a 3-year-old daughter, Lily. Rachel and I have always had a complicated relationship. We grew up more like distant cousins than close friends. Over the years, she's become very judgmental about my choices, particularly regarding parenting philosophies. I don't have kids, but I've always been vocal about my desire to wait until I feel financially and emotionally ready. Rachel has repeatedly commented on this, telling me I'll regret it or never truly understand life until I have kids. I usually ignore it, but it still stings. So fast forward to a couple of months ago, Rachel got engaged, and she recently announced that she and her fiancé, Mark, are expecting another child. She's been extremely vocal about how family comes first and how children should always be a priority in every aspect of life. When Alex and I sent her the wedding invitation with the adults-only note, she immediately responded with an angry email. She said it was disrespectful to our family and child-unfriendly. She added that forcing a child to miss out on family events is cruel and selfish. I tried to reply politely, explaining that we simply didn't have the space and wanted the event to be adult-focused, but she escalated. Things got worse at our last family gathering. Rachel brought up the wedding in front of multiple relatives. She said, "I don't understand why Opie thinks Lily should be excluded. Kids are part of the family, and this exclusion says a lot about her parenting ideals, or a lack thereof." I tried to shrug it off and not engage, but Mark jumped in and accused me of being judgmental. I reminded them that I'm not the parent here, and the adults-only policy was not about judgment. It was about logistics and personal preference. Rachel laughed in a condescending way and said, "I guess if you never had kids, you wouldn't understand the importance of family events, including children." At that moment, I realized that this conversation wasn't going anywhere, and I had to make a decision for the wedding. I spoke to Alex about it, and we both agreed that Lily would not be allowed at the ceremony or the reception. Alex even offered to help Rachel arrange childcare for the day, but she refused, insisting she couldn't trust anyone else with Lily. I honestly tried to compromise. I suggested that Lily could attend the ceremony, but not the reception, or that maybe we could have a small, separate activity just for kids in another room. Rachel refused all options and started making comments about how my child-free wedding was basically a personal attack on her and her parenting. The tension exploded when she posted on Facebook about it. She didn't mention me by name, but she wrote a long post about how she can't understand families that exclude their youngest members from important celebrations, implying that adults who aren't parents are selfish. Our mutual friend started messaging me, trying to mediate or ask why I was being so harsh. I mostly ignored it because I didn't want to escalate, but the judgment was relentless. When I told my parents about the issue, they were supportive at first. They said it was our day, and we had every right to enforce an adults-only policy. But my aunt, who is Rachel's mom, started pressuring me too, saying that I should rethink my position or risk alienating family. She kept saying that you don't know what it's like to miss out on family milestones as a child, and that family comes first, not some rigid wedding plan. I started to feel guilty because I didn't want my wedding to be remembered as a family feud, but at the same time, I didn't want to compromise on something we felt strongly about. The final straw was 2 weeks ago when Rachel called me crying, saying I was heartless and prioritizing my comfort over my family. She claimed that excluding Lily was going to scar her for life and that it would destroy her bond with the family. I tried explaining calmly that the wedding was small. We loved Lily, but she was still very young, and the decision wasn't a reflection of her value in our family. Rachel shouted, "You don't even have kids. You can't possibly understand," before hanging up. Since then, other family members have been divided. Some support our adults-only decision, while others think I'm being unreasonable and unkind. Alex and I are sticking to our guns, but now the thought of walking down the aisle with part of our family angry at us is weighing heavily on me. I feel like we're being vilified for setting a boundary, but at the same time, I hate the idea of hurting Lily or my cousin. I want a stress-free wedding, and including a toddler in a setting where she could be overwhelmed seems like a recipe for disaster. So AITA for refusing to let Rachel's toddler attend our wedding after all the insults and refusal to compromise. Character count, 6,356 if you want. I can also craft an even longer, more dramatic version approaching the 7,000 character limit, with more family tension, wedding day mishaps, and emotional confrontations, which tend to perform really well on Reddit. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancé attend my wedding because of a past incident? I, 32F, am getting married in about 6 months, and things have been going relatively smoothly until a recent confrontation with my family about guest lists, specifically my brother's fiancée, Sarah, 28F. I need to figure out if I'm being unreasonable here. Some context. My brother, Jake, 35M, and I have always had a somewhat strained relationship. Growing up, we clashed a lot, but we've generally maintained civility as adults. About a year ago, Jake started dating Sarah. And from the start, I felt she was problematic, but I tried to keep it to myself to avoid family drama. Sarah has a reputation for being controlling and manipulative, and there have been multiple incidents where she's caused serious tension in our family. The worst one, which I can't forget, happened at my parents' anniversary party last year. During that party, my parents had invited close friends and family, and everyone was in a good mood. Sarah had a few drinks, and for reasons I still don't understand, she started loudly criticizing my outfit, saying it was inappropriate and made me look cheap. I tried to ignore her, but she kept escalating, insulting not just me, but my friends as well. She even went so far as to grab the food I was serving and complain that my presentation skills were amateur. At that point, I asked her to leave. Jake tried to defend her, which led to a massive argument between us. She eventually left, but the damage was done. Several family friends later commented that it was the most awkward and uncomfortable family event they'd ever attended. My parents apologized profusely to everyone, but I've never forgiven Sarah for humiliating me in front of so many people. Fast forward to now, Jake has been pushing for Sarah to be included in the wedding. He says it's her right as his fiancée and that excluding her would be catty and unfair. I have tried to explain that I don't want someone at my wedding who has publicly humiliated me and created drama in front of everyone I care about. I also added that I don't feel comfortable celebrating one of the most important days of my life with someone who clearly dislikes me and whose presence could ruin the atmosphere. Jake says I'm overreacting and holding a grudge, but I genuinely believe it's justified. I suggested some compromises. Have Sarah attend the reception only, or keep her away from certain parts of the day. He rejected both, insisting that she should be allowed everywhere, including the ceremony. I even offered to have a mediated conversation with her to smooth things over, but he said it wouldn't matter because Sarah doesn't apologize for things like that. I don't see how a forced apology would help anyway. I don't want her there. My parents are caught in the middle. They understand why I feel uncomfortable, but they're also worried about Jake being upset if she's excluded. My friends are mostly supportive, saying it's my day and I get to set boundaries. Some relatives, however, have voiced that I'm being petty and making a scene over old drama. I've tried to explain that it's not just old drama. It was a public humiliation that I'm entitled to protect myself from, especially on a day that's supposed to be joyful. Yesterday, Jake called me and got very angry. He accused me of trying to control his life and relationships, and said if Sarah isn't invited, he might not come at all. He also claimed that by excluding her, I would be shaming him in front of the family. I told him that I would be disappointed if he didn't come, but that I couldn't compromise my own comfort and happiness for someone who has been openly hostile to me. He ended the call saying I didn't care about family unity and hung up. I know I sound harsh, but this is my wedding, not Jake's. I'm trying to protect myself and the experience for my other guests, but I can't shake the feeling that maybe I'm being unreasonable. Excluding someone from a wedding is serious, and I don't want to create long-term resentment in my family. I've considered letting her attend under strict conditions, but I can't imagine controlling her behavior once she's there. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée attend my wedding because of what happened last year. AITA for confronting my brother about his wedding after discovering he secretly banned some of my closest friends. I, 28F, have always been close to my brother, Mark, 30M, despite our differences. Growing up, we had the typical sibling rivalry, but as adults, we developed a genuinely supportive relationship. I moved across the country for work a few years ago, but we stayed close through calls, texts, and occasional visits. I knew his fiancée, Laura, 29F, socially, but we weren't super close. When Mark announced their engagement last year, I was genuinely excited for them and immediately offered to help with wedding planning in any way I could. Fast forward to a few months ago, I flew back home for a weekend to help Mark and Laura with their wedding plans. They had been finalizing the guest list, and I casually asked if it was okay to bring a few of my friends who had been a huge part of my life for over a decade. I specifically mentioned 3 people: my best friend, Nina, my college roommate, James, and a co-worker who's basically like a sibling to me, Claire. I assumed they would be happy to meet some of the people who mattered to me. especially since they hadn't been around them before. A week later, I got a call from Nina. She sounded upset. Apparently, when she RSVP'd to the wedding, she got a notification that she was not on the guest list and that her invitation had been declined. Confused and concerned, I called Mark immediately. He sounded calm but firm. He told me that Laura didn't want certain people at the wedding and that they had the right to curate their guest list. I asked him who specifically, and he said it was those friend you mentioned. I froze. I couldn't understand why Laura would have a problem with people she barely knew. I asked Mark if they had told me earlier because I could have handled it differently, or at least warned my friends. He said they didn't think it was necessary to mention it to me. I was shocked. I told him that these are people I've known for years, people who have been a support system for me, and it feels incredibly hurtful to be completely excluded from such an important moment in my life. Mark said that he understood my frustration, but he was trying to avoid conflict on the wedding day. He told me it wasn't personal, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was. I asked him if we could compromise, maybe invite them to the rehearsal dinner, or at least have a meeting where Laura and I could talk. He refused, saying it would just complicate things, and Laura has been very clear about who she wants there. I felt torn. I didn't want to create drama so close to the wedding, but I also felt like my relationship with my brother and the people who have supported me for years were being disrespected. After much deliberation, I decided to confront Laura directly via a very polite and respectful message. I explained that I completely understood her desire to have a certain type of wedding, but I hoped she could understand my side as well. I expressed that my friends are integral to my life, and that being completely excluded feels like I'm being asked to leave a part of myself out of a celebration that's supposed to bring family and friends together. Laura's response was immediate and colder than I anticipated. She said she didn't appreciate being questioned about her decisions, that she had final say on the wedding, and that if I couldn't respect that, maybe I shouldn't attend. I felt blindsided. I replied, trying to be calm, that I wasn't trying to disrespect her, only to explain my perspective. After that, she stopped responding entirely. I spoke with Mark again, and this time I was more forceful. I told him that I can't just accept that my friends are completely banned without at least a conversation or compromise. He said that I was making it a bigger deal than it is, and that if I pushed further, I would be causing unnecessary stress right before the wedding. I tried to reason with him, pointing out that he had invited friends he's known for less time than my friends, and it just didn't feel fair. He said, "This is not negotiable, and if you can't respect it, that's on you." At this point, I was hurt, frustrated, and honestly questioning our relationship. I felt like I was being forced to choose between my brother and my own support system. I thought about skipping the wedding, but I didn't want to punish him or create a permanent rift. So I decided I would attend, but with a heavy heart and without my friends. I tried to compartmentalize my feelings, but it was difficult. During the wedding weekend, I noticed subtle but clear signs of tension. Laura barely spoke to me, and Mark seemed nervous and withdrawn. Some of my other friends, who were invited, noticed and commented on the awkwardness. I tried to stay polite and celebratory, but inside I was frustrated and sad. After the ceremony, I decided to step aside and have a frank conversation with Mark. I asked him why he allowed Laura to dictate such a personal boundary without even discussing it with me. His response was that he didn't want to fight and that he wanted everything to go smoothly. I asked him if our relationship meant nothing if it couldn't survive a disagreement about my friends, and he got defensive, saying he felt attacked. I reminded him that all I wanted was to be included in the discussion and to have my friends recognized as important people in my life. That seemed to anger him further, and the conversation ended abruptly. Now, several weeks after the wedding, I'm still dealing with the fallout. My friends are hurt. I feel distant from my brother, and I can't help but feel like my feelings were dismissed entirely. I don't want to create unnecessary drama, but I also feel like what happened was unfair. So Reddit, AITA for confronting my brother and fiancé about banning my friends from their wedding, even though they refused to change their minds? Was I wrong to challenge their guest list, or should I have just stayed quiet? Character count, 6,455. AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding after what happened at my sister's graduation. So I 28F, come from a fairly tight-knit family. And for context, I've always been the one who tries to avoid drama. My parents divorced when I was 12, and since then, my mom, 52F, and dad, 55M, have had separate lives, but we've always made a big effort to stay in touch. I also have a younger sister, Emily, 24F, who's always been the more popular sibling. She's outgoing, charismatic, and, to be honest, a little manipulative when she wants something. The story starts a few years ago at Emily's college graduation. My mom, dad, Emily, and I were all there. Everything was going fine until the reception. Emily had invited her friend group from college, people I didn't know, and at some point, one of them spilled a drink on me while I was talking to my dad. I was wearing a dress that my mom had helped me pick out, and it was ruined. I was obviously upset, but Emily just laughed it off and said, "It's not a big deal, it's just a dress," and went back to talking to her friends. My dad tried to calm me down, and my mom was visibly frustrated but didn't say much because she didn't want to cause a scene. I tried to laugh it off too, but I felt humiliated in front of all these people I didn't know. The worst part? Emily kept posting pictures on social media that included me in a messy state without my permission. After the graduation, my sister and I didn't really talk much for a while. She was always busy with work and her social life, and I was trying to move past the incident. My parents were annoyed with her, but since she's their favorite in some ways, they didn't really confront her about it. I felt like they didn't take my feelings seriously, which hurt more than the dress incident itself. Fast forward to last month. Emily got engaged and sent out invitations to her wedding, which is happening next summer. The invitation was lavish, black tie, destination wedding style, and my parents are of course over the moon. They've been dropping hints about how important it is for the family to be together, how we need to show support, and so on. I tried to be diplomatic and said I would see what I could do. Honestly, I was conflicted because I wanted to be there for my family, but the thought of facing Emily again after how little she cared about me at my graduation was exhausting. A few days after receiving the invite, my mom called me and guilt-tripped me a little, saying things like, "You don't want to hurt your sister on her special day, do you? And families are supposed to be there for each other." I tried to explain that I still had hard feelings about how she treated me at graduation and that it wasn't just about the dress. There's a pattern of her ignoring my feelings or using me as a prop in front of others. My mom didn't really respond to that. She just kept insisting that it would be healing if I went. My dad also texted me separately, telling me that family comes first and that I should put aside past grievances. I decided to write Emily a message explaining that I wouldn't be attending the wedding. I tried to keep it calm and mature, saying that I had unresolved feelings from past events and that attending would be emotionally difficult for me. I added that I hoped she understood and that I still wished her happiness, but I needed to set this boundary for my own mental health. I thought this was a reasonable approach. Her response was explosive. She accused me of being selfish and dramatic, said I was punishing her for something that happened years ago, and that I was choosing to let resentment control my life instead of celebrating a milestone she worked hard for. She also CC'd our parents in the message. My parents immediately jumped on me, saying I was ruining family dynamics, letting petty things come between us, and that I was choosing isolation over love. They tried to get me to reconsider, even offering to mediate a conversation with Emily. I stood firm, explaining that my mental health had to come first, and that a boundary doesn't mean I don't love my family. It means I'm taking care of myself. Now, a month later, the situation is tense. Emily has started posting about her wedding plans on social media, tagging everyone except me. My parents are upset that I won't be attending and keep bringing it up during family calls. I feel like I'm being punished for trying to protect myself from emotional harm. I'm also worried that my refusal will have long-term consequences on my relationship with my parents and other relatives who are close to Emily. So here I am, stuck between my desire to maintain my own mental well-being and the pressure from my family to conform to their idea of loyalty and support. I keep questioning myself. Am I overreacting? Am I being too sensitive about the past? Or am I justified in declining the wedding because of how I was treated before? I just want to know, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of past events, even though my family thinks I'm being selfish? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.